Iran has fired a new wave of ballistic missiles towards Israel. Explosions have been heard over Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. There have been several waves of missiles fired overnight from Iran. Israeli media is reporting that 4 sites have been hit. Noor Odeh joins us live now from the Jordan's capital. She's in Amman because Israel's government has banned Al Jazeera from reporting inside Israel and the occupied West Bank. So, Noor, what's the latest we're hearing about this latest attack from Iran towards Israel?
So, Mohammed, there were 4 impact sites, 3 in central Israel, in the Gush Dan area, as it's called. So that's the larger Tel Aviv area. There was heavy damage sustained to some buildings. 1 in Holon is reported to have collapsed. There was also an impact site cleared from the military sensor that made impact near Soroka Hospital. Now, why Soroka Hospital is important? This is a very large hospital in Israel. It receives, right now, in the context of the war on Gaza, a lot of injured soldiers. The hospital itself, that we know, was not the target. There was a building next to it that struck, but it sustained heavy damage, and the medical crews are inviting the public not to approach the impact site. They're still going through the buildings and the rubble to make sure that there is nobody stuck under the debris. Up to 25 people have been injured, and these are very initial numbers, Mohammed. We understand that maybe 3 of them are in critical condition, but there's still, it's a fluid situation, and the crews are still working in those impact sites. The fact that 1 building collapsed means that it will take some time before the medical services in Israel can say conclusively that they've been able to tally all those injured or possibly killed in this attack.
Noor, when we were speaking to you just a few minutes back, you were talking about the fact that this is taking a toll on residents in cities like Tel Aviv and other parts of Israel that have come under attack from Iran. The fact that there are ballistic missiles that are getting through Israel's much vaunted Iron Dome air defense system. But there is still broad support amongst the public in Israel for the campaign against Iran, correct?
There is. I mean, Iran is the consensus bad guy, if you will, in Israel. This is a country that is viewed as a threat by most Israelis. Now, there might be discussion about the tactics, about whether it was smart to do this alone, to not create an international coalition. But the fact that Israel is attacking Iran is not exactly controversial. Now, the toll that it's taking on Israelis, well, you know, we're still in the first week, but I can tell you from personal experience, as someone who's lived in areas where bombs keep falling, although without alarms, it is very disruptive. It's exhausting. You don't get enough sleep. You have to keep wondering and worrying about your children, about your daily routine, what areas you should approach and what areas you shouldn't, and so on. What could be a possible target? So this is psychologically very difficult for people in areas that are trapped in such conflict zones. It's also has an impact on the economy. And yesterday, less than 24 hours ago, the Israeli army eased some of the restrictions on Israeli citizens. So they went from essential to limited. That means that some economic activity was able to resume, that some gatherings were permitted, but people still were instructed to stay near shelters. And that means that your life is confined to movement and planning in and around the vicinity of the nearest shelter. It is quite exhausting.
And Noor, you raised an important point in your last answer. You talked about having lived in areas where rockets had fallen, but there were no alarms that had sounded. So I want to ask you about what the situation is like with all this going on for Palestinians in the occupied West Bank.
Well, it's nerve-wracking. In the occupied West Bank, there are no alarms. There are no shelters, just like in Gaza. And so what Palestinians do is they download the Israeli applications that give some forward warning to Israeli citizens. They listen in to the nearby Israeli settlements, and it's difficult to live in the occupied West Bank without having at least one illegal settlement near you. So most Palestinians can hear those sirens, but then there's nowhere for them to go. So what most do, what I did when I was in Ramallah, is to try and figure out what is the safest room in my house, what is the one further away from the windows, further away from the illegal Israeli settlement, and convince myself that this is the best way to do it, or to go to, where the staircase is if you live in a building, and on and on. Now, if it's a school day, for example, well, you learn to deal with the stress, because you cannot stop living just because you are deprived of all protections. So life does go on. People do go to school. Right now, schools are off in the occupied West Bank. It's summer vacation. But you can't stop your daily routine just because you're caught without, like I said, without protection. And there's nothing really that you can do about it.
Noor, if I could follow up on a point you were making earlier, you did mention that this is just the first week of this conflict, and we have to wait and see what the support will be if this prolongs this conflict, and if there are more attacks, and if more missiles, ballistic missiles launched from Iran, get through the Israeli air defense systems. I want to ask you, though, is there a sense in Israel that those Israelis who may be supporting this conflict thus far, do they have a sense as to what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's objectives truly are at this point? Do they believe that it is deterrence? Do they believe that it is degradation of Iran's capabilities, or is it regime change in Tehran?
Well, that's difficult to gauge because, quite honestly, the Israeli government hasn't really been forthcoming. They've given mixed signals. The Israeli prime minister has spoken about toppling the Iranian government. If you listen to the right-wing media, and let's remember, Israel is very polarized at the moment. Nearly 2 years of a genocidal war on Gaza, another war on Lebanon, a multi-frontal war waged all across the region. It has really fractured public opinion in Israel, and many in the Israeli public don't trust Netanyahu. They don't trust his motivations. So the fact that in the right-wing media circles there is a lot of hype about possibly taking out the supreme leader of Iran, about toppling the government, about eliminating the threat if the United States participates actively in the military efforts. Then you begin to wonder, and the Israelis are asking questions. What is the end game? There's no end game for Gaza except the talk about mass displacement and ethnic cleansing. There is no end game in Lebanon. There is no end game anywhere at the moment in all those fronts, in all those wars that Israel is waging. What there is talk about hegemony, is talk about also the political survival of this right-wing government. Polls indicate that the approval rating of Netanyahu has increased, at least in his base, in his right-wing base. And so one begins to draw some connections. At the moment, there isn't enough chatter, there isn't enough momentum, if you will, to say that some sort of opposition is increasing, although the voices questioning all of this do exist, and we hear them and we read some of the opinion pieces that are published, some of the commentary that is published, questioning that tactic, questioning the motivations behind all of this and the timing. Mohammed, I want to remind our viewers, a few days before all of this took place, before all of this started on Friday, there was a no confidence vote in the Israeli Knesset against this government. It barely survived that no confidence vote. And I remember that we were reporting right before the bill was put to vote. Netanyahu told his detractors within the right-wing base, you have to wait. This is a very sensitive area, very sensitive time. And this is, there are very important things that might be happening in the coming days. He won them over, and his government survived. So there's a lot of internal politics happening here, even though we're talking about a consequential conflict, one with regional and global ramifications, especially in relation to oil prices, in relation to the supply of energy. Iran is not just a regional player, it is an important producer of energy in the world.
All right, that's Al Jazeera's Noor Uday joining us live from Amman. A reminder to our viewers, Noor is in Amman because Israel's government banned Al Jazeera from reporting inside Israel and the occupied West Bank. Thanks so much, Noor.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.